Okay, so let's make a quick. Everyone can say what he's working on, and if he has any questions, who wants to go first?
Sure, I can go. So yeah, I'm working on a new integration for a plugin called Cantar Media, which is going to be for America TV, and it's something for the watermarking for audios. So like they're trying to like create all this like fancy like rewards program around, like people be able to like watermark their audios, and then people can put their application and they can get points for every minute they listen to the streams or they're watching something. And so that's one of the integrations we're looking at. I have a meeting today after like a 6 p.m. here local time. So I'll give you more details next week, I think. So yeah, so it's for the reward, the idea behind what the client wants is like be able to reward the users with like points, so say you're watching my stream, so we give you amount of points and then you can do things with those points.
Is it a generic plugin? Can it be reused by another client? Or
ideally, yes and no. So the SDK is generic.
The video.
What?
The audio.
About what?
No, you need to integrate with their system, with their watermark on the audio files. No?
Yeah, no, not only it's not so much the watermarking part. That's the generic part. Like what you need to integrate is where to report that watermark. So, and that will be custom like endpoints for this integration particularly. So because the thing is we need to report, so the SDK, the only thing it says like, okay, like something is being like detected, the audio, but it doesn't do anything else. So, all the reporting, you have to do it by yourself. So what the client is looking at, that's why I say yes, but no. So the SDK is generic, but the integration most likely is going to be custom more than anything because the client has to create all these endpoints for report the events.
Why not to use all the endpoints?
A what?
Data source.
What do you mean data source?
For the calls, you said
no, like what Javier is saying is that the watermarking will be under live stream on TV, and the app will say, hey, this person is listening or watching the stream, and then we'll call America TV APIs with the user attached, saying, hey, this person has 1 point or whatever. Those APIs would be private. They would be non-generic. The only generic part is actually Cantar Media SDK.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with atoms or anything like that. So it's just like events, So like I think the idea that I'm looking at how to do this is to like post events into their backend, So and they can actually do those things. So that's the way I was thinking it. So. And then that's one part, and then I'll let you know when I have more details about this integration, and I have a meeting today. And then the other one is the FIFA. So Roy is looking into the iOS part. I started on the Android part. So I already created the repos, and I will publish the first draft, like super generic. Like
about the full screen or the player?
The full screen part. So so far it's like taking it with the widgets. They just released a new version of the widgets, by the way, which most of them are already there, most of them, but not 100%. So there's still a few, like at least that I know one left, and there were a couple of them that didn't work. But so yeah, I started like already, as I say, creating the repos and then like creating the basic structure, and I will start creating the basic screens as well that is on the spec. And Roy is doing the same thing in iOS. And then also at the same time doing a custom thing for Televisa, that they wanted some specific custom thing. I know it's not the best solution ever because so the way I'm structuring it, you guys can take a look, is that, for Televisa specific things, I put it in Televisa package and everything in the same plugin. So the idea is to reuse everything for, I don't think we're going to have like way too many clients using this integration. Hopefully, they can actually use the generic parts already done, so they're done for those things. And I think it's one time off integration. It is only going to live until the summer. it's just pointless to make it super complicated. So I think it, for simplicity reasons, I think it's just easier if we can just put everything in the same plugin, even though there's might be different clients, and then just reuse everything else. So all the endpoints and everything, or like the widgets and everything. So and that's it. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay. Wants to go next?
I'll go next really quick. I'm also working on an integration with Toolbox Cloud Pass, and it's basically a single sign-on for cable providers, MSOs from Latin America. We're going to do this for a app we have to do with Dice Sports, but it will be generic. I don't think it really will matter to the rest of the regions though, because this is something that is used in Latin America mostly. And then after that, we're going to do essentially the same thing, but with Adobe. And that one will be more relevant to everybody else, because I think Adobe is also in Europe and in North America. But they're essentially the same product. You just like go to watch a video, and then it tells you please log in with your cable provider, and then it takes you to their web view, etc. So yeah, that's all I'm really working on right now.
Okay. Who volunteers to go next?
Volunteers. I can go next.
Okay.
So I'm working for a voting plugin for the Reshet that allows like multiple votes to be cast on a specific question. This is for the Big Brother show that will be like airing soon. This is using the JS2 native JavaScript, and we've noticed that the documentation we have on the application developers is not really up to date, which like it's even misleading. That, for example, there is a method in the documentation website that says, okay, we should pass it an object, but looking at the source code, it expects 3 parameters, which is like, after like having to debug for a couple of hours, we've noticed that, okay, we have the documentation not up to date. So it's important that, to maybe, I don't know who's in charge of the JS2 native documentation. Maybe I can open a pull request for Carlos, but yeah. So this is one thing. Another thing is like I'm not sure I've updated, but for the Chromecast support that we have, we do have now. Because I wasn't here in the last Tech Talk, so today, if you want, you can, I'm not sure if it has been announced or not, but
no, because there is no analytics.
Okay, okay, so we should wait for analytics first. But technically, we do have a Chromecast support in our apps. If you want more details, there should be documentation on how to add it, to configure it for your clients and so on. But there's one
support level.
Support will can help you do the configuration. But for now, on Android, we are missing the analytics part, which hopefully should be. I will be adding it in the next couple of days, week or two, who knows. But depends on the priority of the tasks, but hopefully soon. So yeah, that's it for me. Nothing to update else.
Okay.
Any questions, answers?
What is the plugin? How does the plugin work? I mean, it opens a web view,
Wait, which plugin?
the voting one.
Yeah. So the voting is a WebView component that the WebView code uses a JS to native that has access to our native side, and we handle it in our bridge command. If you know, yeah. So yeah, it's.
So what is the plugin part?
The
And
plugin
it's not
part
just calling the
is saving the answers in Firebase and having a counter to allow, for example, up to X amount of votes per question. For example, let's say for a show like a Big Brother, where users want to vote per one of the people there, so they can, and you want to limit them up to 10 votes. So I can allow, I can save votes into Firebase, and thus allowing him to vote just 10 times.
Basically, the plugin is just saving the
data in the
database. Now it's Firebase, but it can be any database.
It's a plugin, yeah. You can change it to be
right now it's Firebase, but you can change the plugin and save it, I don't know, wherever you want.
Okay.
And who is in charge of the, really denying the user to vote, X amount of times, and it's the client side, it's the JavaScript side.
The web manages all the logic of the template, like the voting and display everything, and just to save and get each user if he already voted or not.
Yeah.
We manage it in the Firebase.
Because the backend doesn't.
No, because we need to support the same logic for both Android and iOS.
We had a problem back then that user cleared cached and could vote again. So in order to avoid it,
even though it's Firebase, that database clearing the cache should not.
In the beginning, we saved it as
SQLite or
cookies.
Okay.
In the web, and also in iOS, when you delete the app and reinstall it, you could vote again. So now we save the user. This user voted for this question in the database, and just check in the database if he already voted or not.
Okay.
And display the question again.
Cool. Pablo, do you want to go next?
Yes. So the past week, I did a bridge between React and Android and iOS to add a new module called Reminders that basically allows you to add an alert when a program is about to start. And now I'm facing a problem because the SDK, the API, when opening an alert, is supposed to open a full screen, the channel full screen, but it's not showing. So
full screen live?
No, a reminder.
Yeah, when you add a reminder, when you open the alert, it should show the channel in full screen.
No, it's
showing the streaming.
That's a bug we have in other places.
When
you click on the reminder or when you click on the channel from the APG?
The notification?
No, when I click on the reminder. So basically the alert is created well, but when I click on the alert,
check if it's related to an ad unit that should be configured. Something I remember I had an issue.
An issue in Reshet.
It sometimes, the logic in our SDK is looking for an ad unit, but it's not there, so it does not open the live channel. You can, I can point you to exactly where to search for, once ping me, and I will point you to where to find the solution.
Okay, if you can write me after on the Slack. Also, if you can tell me some apps that are using the reminders feature, will be nice.
Yeah.
For the
Some working apps that are using the reminders.
We have in Rayshade, but what other I'm not sure. As applications are not reminder.
The Televisa Deportes or
Yeah, Televisa Deportes should have it.
and there it works in Televisa Deportes, I think. Javier, do you know if it works there? Like when you click on reminder, it's open the channel?
I believe if you click on reminder, set to reminder, but then you mean when it notifies you about it, does it take you directly to the stream? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. It takes you directly
it should. I checked this a really, really long time ago when I first started, so I don't know if it does anymore, but it did before.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I will have a look. Basically, that's all.
Okay. Atanas? Atanas, do you want to go next?
Hello. Yeah, sure. So I was just checking something for Elisa. I think I told her something that's not true. I just realized. So I'm working on Amazon, adding support for Amazon TV, and you know, guys, how the at the top level application we have the mobile code in one place and the TV code in another place. And this caused a little bit of trouble for some of us because there were issues with building the apps and a few other things. It looks like we will have to add this for the other repositories as well, mainly generic and the SDK. For generic, I managed to segregate the code into mobile and TV, and it was relatively easy, which is quite surprising even for me. Basically, we have this Android TV folder that is in generic. And when you guys ship a mobile app, it is shipping with this code as well. We want to avoid that. The same is the other thing is also true. Like if we release a TV app, we ship with all the mobile styles and things. We want to avoid that. Generally, if we want to release Android, Amazon TV, we can't release with the big five. So the big five are Google libraries that Amazon just doesn't want to use. They're forbidden. One of them is Google Plus. The other one is push notifications, GCM. Yet another one is Firebase. And two others, like I don't have them on the top of my head. Basically, we have it's not very convenient because our SDK has dependencies on those libraries, and these dependencies would need to be reversed so that these libraries are plugins that can be attached or detached and replaced, possibly to the SDK. The other thing is that this is still work in progress, and I would also need feedback from other people like Rangil, Francois, anybody with interest in architecture and refactoring. So it would really be appreciated. So I did list of the modules. I prepared a list of the modules, and some of the modules are only need for mobile. For example, we have a Firebase module in the SDK, like this is trivial. We have our notification center, notifications on TV. We actually had a conversation with Ben, and I still don't know whether it makes sense or not. We also have services, many things that, for example, we have storefront. things that are interfaces but live in user interfaces but live in the SDK. So it's interesting. So I'm gonna continue with that and see how it goes. As the SDK is more complex than the generic. The generic is mobile versus TV. The SDK is like features, can be split into features. So that's me.
Okay. Once I finish the task that I'm currently working on, I will be joining you to this effort. Okay. Cool. You heard me. You heard me, right?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Bro?
No, it's busy.
רוצה להיות הבא? Okay, Guy, do you want to go next?
I think just like last time, I'll go last with some more highlights about the Android P migration process and etc. So maybe let's finish with the ongoing sync, unless everybody spoke already.
I have a small one.
Me too. I just remember. You finish.
Okay. I'm still working on the navigation story. Pretty much finished with the navbar, toolbar. Just some small finishes that needs to be done. And I'm also working on the React Native plugin that Shimon and Yuri did to integrate it. Yeah, so it will be a big change in the code. I will publish documentation and maybe we'll have a talk to make sure that everything is clear to all of us. So I guess that I hope that next talk I will have some more concrete things to show you. Yeah, that's it. So Tarek, you wanted?
No, I just wanted to update that when I added the Firebase dependency to my project, it added the dependency with an older version than we had than we have in the SDK. For example, in the SDK we have Firebase 11.0.4, and when you add it to using ZAP in the general, when you configure the Firebase JSON, it is added to the app level as Firebase 10.0, which causes a conflict. So, and also it is added as a compile and not an implementation or API. So, yeah, it's something that we should fix.
Okay, I will set a ticket for it.
So,
anyway, if it happens when you add the Firebase plugin, it fixes it, as far as I know.
Yeah, I can confirm that that happened to me as well yesterday. And when you add the Firebase plugin, it does fix it.
Okay, Firebase plugin.
Because it has like a higher...
Analytics?
Yes. It has the higher than your SDK. But yeah, it should be fixed on the script side. So
okay, this is what I meant.
Yeah.
So
if you add your Firebase plugin, so it should fix it also.
No, it should fix the conflict, but
HQ, UQ, or something like that.
Yeah.
My plugin?
No, it
it's a new one.
It's the ultimate question.
No, but it will be a new plugin.
The ultimate version doesn't fix it.
But the conflict is between the SDK and the app level. Because the script adds to the app level. And the SDK has like...
Yeah, it's a mess. It should be fixed.
Yeah. So,
okay. Guy?
Okay, let me share my screen. I hope to get it right this time.
Open Slack on
on a different, on a different
to be sure.
screen. You're supposed to see the browser now,
Yeah.
right?
Nice.
Okay, cool.
Slack. Okay.
You see Slack also, cool. So I wanted to talk about two things about the migration plan, just for you to get a general understanding of how this should be done, and maybe spend just a few short minutes to talk about how this can be done for us, and maybe highlight two features that I found that might be interesting for us, two features in terms of API changes, and also user-facing features that we should take into consideration that might influence our apps as well. So last time we talked about the breaking change, or kind of the enforcement of Google with the new release for using non-public SDKs, which is something that we should be checking and working on from the developer previews and not wait for the final release. So here's the migration plan. This is how Google thinks that apps should be migrated to Android P. There are basically two steps. The first step is checking the compatibility of the existing apps. This should take, they estimated to until the second release of the developer preview. And from that moment forward, developers should start integrating and implementing the new APIs and actually adopting the API version P. And the steps are basically just ensuring the compatibility with Android P. That means running the existing apps on an emulator that runs Android P. It is available already from Android Studio. I downloaded it today and started kind of playing with it. One of our apps seems to be working at least. So I'm saying that this process is something that can be done right now. It can be done either by the teams, and this is a decision that needs to be taken. Maybe we can discuss it also with Udi and with the team to see how this can be done by the, let's say, QA force or the QA effort of the team to start running the apps also on an emulator that runs Android P, and see if there are any behavioral changes that we need to take into consideration. Or it can be done as a centralized QA effort, meaning have Boaz or somebody from Applause maybe even run a device, a Pixel device or Pixel 2 device that has the new framework, and run a few apps to see if they see anything unusual, or these toast messages that should appear now when we're using APIs that we should not be using, or using features that should not be used in our apps. So this is kind of the compatibility phase. The next release is going to be somewhere around mid-May, the next developer preview. The one afterwards is going to be released in June. The developer preview number 2, I think, is with Google I/O. Afterward, there's the final APIs in developer preview 3, and maybe 2 other developer previews, and the final release somewhere around Q3 of this year. So yeah, this is the compatibility step. As for the updating the target API and actually seeing how the app behaves once we update the target API, this is an effort that needs to be taken by either one of the teams that actually needs it. Traditionally, it was us in the EU team that we needed it because we have the dependency in ProSieben. And when they update their target API, sometimes we are forced to do the same. Or it can, again, be done by the Zap team to kind of adopt this new SDK and put it into use for everybody. And this documentation kind of details all the steps that need to be taken, pretty straightforward. This table here describes the thing that needs to be considered during the compatibility phase, the compatibility checking. And the thing that concerns us the most is the restrictions on non-SDK interfaces that we've discussed already. Just making sure that the app doesn't pop up anything that is unusual. And from what I saw, by the way, we don't really have these issues, at least from the initial run that I did. But it doesn't mean that it's a full testing. Obviously, it needs to be tested more carefully.
You have it
the other things are kind of, sorry?
I think we have it on the tab layout.
Okay, so maybe we can we can talk about it. You can show me, and maybe I'll do some more testing on apps that are really relevant with this. Because from what I saw, I didn't find anything. But again, this should be checked more carefully. Yeah, and afterwards, the second phase is actually updating the target API and then getting all the behavioral changes from the new release. That's it for the migration plan, really short. Again, you're more than welcome to read the documentation if you're interested in getting to know some more of this. And as for features, I'm not going to cover all of them, obviously. There are some things that are completely not relevant to our apps, but maybe they're of interest to you as potential users of the new platform. So again, you can read on. One thing that I did find that could be relevant is the kind of deprecation of the image decoder of the bitmap factory, and I definitely know that we use it in the SDK for doing some bitmap decoding. There is a new API that is called image decoder that is now used for everything that the good old bitmap factory used to do. So all the details are here. I'm not saying that this is a must. This is not something that breaks and doesn't exist anymore, but it's a new API that can be used if we choose to use it at some point. That's one. And the other, I think more relevant and more pushing for checking is changes in rotation. So if you can see, I don't know how much you can see from it. If you can see here, there is a small icon that appears in the navigation tab, navigation bar. You see when the screen rotates, you can see something, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of lets the user control, give the user more control of how the app rotates in certain areas, so that you can just click on an icon and then just switch the rotation. Sorry?
That we lock the rotation in our apps anyway.
Yes, for the most part, our rotation is locked. But if you look into the behavioral changes of the screen rotation, they have a lot more kind of emphasis on the portrait rotation that is now called rotation lock. So kind of like what we do. So when there is portrait, the app is basically on a rotation lock mode. And there is kind of more thorough explanation of how the app behaves in different states. So what I think here is the fact that if somebody's actually testing for Android P, this rotation feature needs to be examined. Although we do lock most of our activities, the changes to between the inline player to full screen player and back, these kind of things might have influence on the way they have behaved. And since they touch rotation, we should test rotation. That's my take from here. And I think that's it. That's the most relevant feature, not necessarily interesting features, but most relevant features that I find already. And again, I keep on kind of looking around the documentation to see if I can find more interesting stuff. Any questions, guys?
No.
All right. Then I think I'm done also.
No.
Okay. We still have some time, but I think everyone spoke. And does anyone have anything else to say? No? Okay.
Speak now or
Good. Have a nice day.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye.